Hi guys, Megalithic Maiden here. If you like the content I put out, please subscribe and hit the bell icon for updates. Tonight I'm going to talk a bit about the ancient Olmec culture, and I'm just going to show you a whole lot of different photos. Most of them are mine that I took while visiting various museums around the world and when visiting down in Mexico. So the Olmecs were the first true Mesoamerican civilization. There were small villages and groups of people in the area in which the Olmec developed, but these societies are referred to as pre-Olmec. The Olmecs were a full-fledged civilization because they were more organized and socially advanced than their predecessors. There are differing opinions regarding the Olmec timeline. Some say the start was about 1500 BC, but more popular or mainstream says 1200 BC, but I think it's much older. I'm going to say it's about 1800 BC, and the decline was somewhere around 400 BC. There are many theories about the downfall of the Olmec civilization, such as climate change, illness, volcanism, and overpopulation. The most recognizable artifacts created by the Olmecs are 17 colossal basalt heads that have been discovered over 4 different sites. The Olmec gathered basalt from boulders located in the Sierra de la Tuxtlas Mountains. These stones were very large, and we don't know how they moved them to where they sit today, or where they did sit. The heads were shaped with percussion, hammerstones, and abrasives, apparently. The first archaeological investigations of the Olmecs didn't begin until more than 75 years after the initial discovery of a colossal head. One of the first and most famous researchers to study the Olmec was Matthew Stirling. And out of all of these 17 colossal heads, I have the honor of saying I traveled to Mexico and have visited every single one of them, often getting sick from food poisoning, and with my travel companion got a lot of tick bites, and it's not easy to do because some of them are out like in the middle of nowhere. Some are nice in museums and places, but some are just really hard to get to. But I'm very happy that I went through that experience and was able to, visually experience them in person. So the Olmecs are unique for several reasons. It appears the Olmec culture developed alone, but I'm not so sure I agree with this, really, because there are so many similarities between the Olmecs and some of the ancient cultures, such as the Ainu people of Japan from the Hokkaido region. And the Ainu are sort of an aboriginal-like people. They don't have straight hair as most Asians do. A lot of their hair is curly, and some of them in the past even had blue eyes and lighter skin. Now, these people are the original indigenous people of Japan before the more Asiatic, as we know Asians to look like today, came over. Okay? So there are significant differences between the people that lived in the Japan area in the past and what is there today. They're not the same. Okay, so I do think that perhaps the Ainu may have traveled a bit, or some people related to them and made it across the ocean to different places. And also the Shang culture in China is so similar to the Olmec people as well. Their symbols, the way they carve, their pottery, all of these things, they have so many similarities. The Olmec have a dragon deity that they worshipped. It's sort of a serpent with feathers, and that matches with that ancient Chinese dragon. But that's not that. That's just one of numerous reasons why I think these Asiatic cultures, are related to the Olmec. Most cultures develop without outside influences by engaging in activities such as trade and immigration. Developing independently is rare, and when it happens, that culture is known as pristine. The Olmec had several firsts in the Americas. They developed the first monumental architecture and first signs of city planning, and another first was the use of chocolate, which was their preferred drink, and I can't blame them. Chocolate's quite good. And the name Olmec means rubber people. It's how the Aztec tribes describe the Olmecs, and it makes sense as they are the likely candidates for inventing the first ball games. Okay. Evidence is not solely based upon Olmec influence at the oldest known ball courts, but also from several rubber balls discovered at a sacrificial bog called El Manatee that was used by the Olmecs. The Olmecs are also the earliest known civilization in the Americas to have used mathematics, and they also had the concept of zero. The first calendar in long count format was discovered in the Olmec region of Zapotes on the lower half of Stella Sea, which this stela now resides in Mexico City in the National Museum of Anthropology there, and I visited this museum, and their artifacts are amazing, so if you get the chance, please do go there. So the Olmecs inhabited the area around the Gulf Coast of Mexico, now the modern states of Tabasco and Veracruz. They took advantage of the fertile land. Several large cities have been attributed to them, including San Lorenzo, La Venta, Tres Zapotes, Las Limas, and Laguna de los Cerros. San Lorenzo was the first major city of the Olmec civilization, and it had a population of at least 15,000. It had extremely elaborate drainage systems, and that may have helped its success. They achieved this feat by using carved stone pipes with lids, and San Lorenzo had vast influence and political power in Mesoamerica. And in fact, 10 amazing giant colossal heads were discovered there. The colossal heads may represent rulers or elites. They differ from one another in facial characteristics, and even as a race of people, they look different. But, there's no scientific proof that they were different, they look different. Each was carved with a distinctive headdress from the other, and the largest head at San Lorenzo was 9.3 feet high and 6.9 feet wide, and it weighed about 25.5 tons. And the San Lorenzo colossal heads were at the center of the site and formed two lines oriented north to south. And at La Venta, this city came into prominence around 900 BC. It had thousands of inhabitants and was about 200 hectares in size, though the power and influence of this city spread much further than that. Many people there had jobs such as farming, fishing, moving stone blocks from distant quarries. Traders also ventured into the distant valleys of Mexico and beyond, bringing back cocoa, bright feathers, obsidian, jadeite. Others were members of the priesthood, the elite ruling class. So La Venta was built on top of a ridge along the Palma River. The royal compound existed at the very top, and 4 colossal heads were found at La Venta, and 3 of the 4 were oriented in a line east-west. The placement of these monuments at both La Venta and San Lorenzo is very intriguing, and we're not sure exactly why they did this. La Venta had a great pyramid, which is thought to have been an important ceremonial and political center. That's right, the Olmecs built pyramids, guys. Building of the pyramid is estimated to have begun around 1200 BC, though it could be earlier. It was the largest Mesoamerican structure of its time. It was 110 feet high and contained approximately 100,000 cubic meters of earth fill. It has never been excavated, and scans of the area show a few interesting anomalies. There are other structures underneath the city, offerings to these gods. These include more than 1,000 tons of polished serpentine blocks, more than 48 individual deposits of pottery, hematite mirrors, jade celts, and complex mosaics. Zapotes is the third major city. In 1862, Jose Melgar discovered the first Olmec colossal head there. This led to the first archaeological explorations in the area 5 years later. The city's unique because it may have been inhabited for more than 2,000 consecutive years. It also shows artistic influences from several other groups. The Zapotes became prominent around the time that San Lorenzo Tenochtitlan declined. The decline of Olmec culture at Zapotes occurred during the Middle Formative period. This was about 400 BC. Keep in mind, guys, that these dates themselves are also tentative. We are not exactly sure yet. This decline refers to the Olmec people losing unique cultural aspects. The city was not abandoned at this time, but became a mixed culture known today as the Epi-Olmec culture. Many believe that the Epi-Olmec art, especially at Zapotes, was less skilled. Less detail was used and lower quality items were produced. What this means is a loss of technology. With the decline of the Olmec, the decline of technology occurred. There's an interesting Olmec head at Zapotes as well I'd like to mention. The back of it has almost African-looking braids, and I'm not saying that it is African, but I'm just saying the style of it is what we see in Africa often. I mean, anybody can braid their hair, but I just thought I would point this out because it's interesting, and it could be important. You never know. So La Cabada was not an inhabited city. It was a basalt site located near the Sierra de las Tuxtlas Mountains. An offering of an obsidian knife was found buried with the colossal head found there. The knife was pointed north toward Monument Q's head. The head at La Cabada was discovered in 1970 and is the largest found so far, and it is also the only Olmec head discovered with closed eyes. So we're not sure exactly what this means. Olmec religion spurs the interest and debates of many scholars. Some regard the Olmec religious hierarchy as complex, while others call it simplistic compared to the Maya and Aztec pantheons. I view it as both complex and simplistic. Complex because it showed ingenuity in rituals and beliefs set in place with probable no major outside influence accepted by mainstream archaeology at this time, but also simplistic when compared with Maya and Aztec pantheons. The Maya worshipped over 250 deities, and the Aztec had more than 1,000. Now that's complex right there. Unfortunately, the identities of the Olmec gods have been lost to time because the Olmec language has yet to be deciphered. The only way to gain insight regarding their beliefs is by studying the images and symbols left behind on carvings and other artifacts. Information on who they worshipped and how they did so may change drastically in the future, but it appears the Olmec deities did not show gender, unlike the Aztec and Maya cultures that they parented. So, shamanism was a central part of Olmec religion, and images of shamans transforming is often depicted in their art. Shamans are shown performing feats of acrobatics, sometimes with were-jaguar attributes. Seems that the Olmec thought very highly of jaguars and admired their strength, stealth, and prowess. One of the highest states of being you could achieve would be the ability to become one with the powerful jaguar. Therefore, shamans were very important people in the Olmec religion. God 1 of the Olmec pantheon was the god of earth, sun, water, and fertility, and was also referred to as Earth Monster. It was sometimes depicted as a dragon with flaming eyebrows and a well-defined nose. This being's connection suggests that it may have been a creator deity. It may have also been the ancestor to the Maya Itzamna, the Aztec Huitzilopochtli, and the Mesoamerican god Huitzilopochtli. Forgive me for the pronunciation of these names. I'm not good at all with that. God 2 was the maize or corn god. It was depicted with a maize cob sprouting from a cleft in its head. Sometimes the being was shown as youthful or carved as a toothless infant. It had almond-shaped eyes, thick prominent lips, and a large flat nose. Carving atop the heads of these statues were common. God 3 was a cosmological deity, sometimes referred to as a bird monster, and was associated with the sun, sky, and agricultural fertility. It was usually portrayed in bird monster form, which combined reptilian and avian features. It sometimes, too, had flaming eyebrows. God 4 is the Olmec god of rain and was an agricultural fertility deity. It was depicted as a were-jaguar, and usually it was shown wearing a headband, pectoral badges, and ear ornaments, and had water features. Some of the gods are not listed, like I might skip God 3 or something, but this is because oftentimes when doing research, you'll find that some of the gods, like 2 and 3, are actually the same one. And you can figure this out because many researchers split them up without really needing to do that. So whenever I'm saying God 4, God 5, just don't worry about that. Just the description is what's important. God 5 is no longer a designation in the Olmec pantheon, but God 6 represented spring and annual renewal. It was most often portrayed as a disembodied cleft head with almond-shaped eyes, one having a stripe across it. The name Banded Eye God is associated with this being. It was usually shown with a toothless, upturned grin. The only known depictions of this deity are in profile, usually carved on earthenware containers. In later years, the worship of this deity became rather hideous, as priests would wear flayed human skins of sacrificial victims. God 7 is a plumed or feathered serpent. It is the best known from the Olmec pantheon and was one of the earliest to have developed. Its counterparts include Kukulkan and Quetzalcoatl. God 8 was the Olmec fish god, sometimes called fish monster or shark monster. This being was associated with all bodies of water, from lakes to oceans. It's portrayed with crescent-shaped eyes, a somewhat human-style nose, a small lower jaw, and a fish body. In fish form, it was sometimes depicted with a forked tail and dorsal fin. God 10 is the last known god in the Olmec pantheon. It was a were-jaguar-type being with the popular cleft head characteristic, a toothless mouth, and almond-shaped eyes. A definable motif of this god was the figure 8 symbol in its nostrils.